I knew my 25-year career at Defense Tech Solutions was over the second Stephanie Pierce walked into our Virginia headquarters wearing a designer suit that probably cost more than my truck payment. She had this look like she'd graduated straight from Stanford Business School into a corner office, never getting her hands dirty with actual engineering work. I'm Harold Mason, 54 years old, and I've been building defense systems since before this woman knew what a radar signature was. I don't give PowerPoint presentations or post motivational quotes on LinkedIn. I'm the guy in the back lab with the oscilloscope and classified manuals, writing the firmware that keeps our soldiers safe overseas. I invented the SkyGuard anti-drone system that made defense tech what it is today, not a team effort despite what the company website claims now. 8 years of my life, nights and weekends debugging code and getting Pentagon approvals. It's a radar detection system that can identify hostile UAVs 15 miles out with 99.1% accuracy. It saved countless missions. And legally, it was mine. See, before I ever signed that employment contract back in 2016, I did something that makes corporate lawyers break out in cold sweats. I kept the core patents. Defense Tech didn't own SkyGuard. They licensed it. Think of renting a Ferrari engine for your Honda. They could use it, modify the housing, sell it worldwide, but if they stopped paying licensing fees or violated our agreement, I could pull that engine right out. That insurance policy came from advice I got from Linda Walsh, my attorney and old college friend who'd been watching my back since we were engineering students at Virginia Tech. Linda specialized in intellectual property law and had seen too many brilliant engineers get screwed by their own companies. Never give away the crown jewels, she told me over beers back in 2016. License it, but keep ownership. You'll thank me someday. Stephanie didn't know this. Or maybe she figured a 54-year-old engineer wouldn't fight back. She was the new CEO, brought in by Apex Capital to optimize operations, corporate speak for cut costs, and flip the company for maximum profit. She swept into the R&D lab that first Monday, smelling like expensive perfume and aggressive ambition. Harold, right? She asked, not looking at me while I was testing a prototype. She was checking her reflection in my monitor screen. I love what you guys are doing here. Very technical work. But we need to think bigger picture. Stop thinking military hardware. Start thinking global market penetration. It detects incoming drones, Stephanie, I said, keeping my voice level. Not delivery packages. She laughed. This sharp fake sound. That's the old school mindset talking. I need you to think like a business owner. We're positioning for a liquidity event. Lockheed Martin has $280 million on the table, but they want clean IP ownership and global licensing rights. Complexity scares investors, Harold. Complexity keeps soldiers alive, I shot back. She stopped smiling and looked at me like I was a stubborn child. We'll work on your adaptability. The old ways don't scale, Hal. Trust the process. The process, it turned out, meant erasing me slowly. First, my name disappeared from the engineering reports. The weekly R&D meetings I'd been running for 6 years got moved to times when I had security clearance reviews. I'd walk past the conference room and see Stephanie in there with the marketing kids, pointing at a whiteboard with my algorithms drawn wrong, explaining my 8 years of work to people who thought firmware was a smartphone app. My team started looking uncomfortable when I tried to join discussions about SkyGuard improvements. Wade Mills, our security director, who'd been my friend for years, would give me these apologetic looks when I got locked out of planning sessions. These were guys I'd trained, guys whose kids' birthday parties I'd attended. Now they were being told I was transitional personnel. I wasn't worried yet. You don't fire the guy who holds the patents, right? That's what I told myself while reviewing the latest ITAR compliance requirements in my office overlooking the Potomac. The atmosphere was changing, though, getting heavy like the air before a thunderstorm. The junior staff stopped making eye contact. The shared calendar suddenly had blocks labeled strategic planning, leadership only, that took up half the day. Then I found the email. I was in the break room getting coffee when I saw a printed message on the counter, face up next to the creamer. From Stephanie to the board, legacy personnel creating friction for Lockheed acquisition, need to streamline workforce demographics. Handling the Mason situation. Expect resolution by Q2. The Mason situation. That was me. I wasn't the chief engineer anymore. I was a problem to be solved. I picked up that paper and read it twice. My hands didn't shake. See, that's the thing about engineers. We don't panic. We analyze. I folded the email into a neat square and put it in my pocket. If Stephanie wanted to play games, she should have checked the rulebook first. I went back to my desk and opened the secure folder on my personal laptop, not the company one. Inside was patent license agreement, final executed.pdf. I stared at section 12, the nuclear option I'd built in 8 years ago. Try me, Stephanie, I whispered to the empty lab. Just try me. If you've never worked in corporate America, let me explain the soft purge. They don't change your keycard access. That's too obvious. Instead, they bleed your authority with 1,000 tiny cuts until you're a ghost in your own building. It started with system access. One morning, I tried logging into the SkyGuard development servers and got an access denied error. When I called Wade Mills, our security director, who I'd worked with for 8 years, he took 4 hours to respond. "Hey, Hal," Wade said carefully. "Stephanie restructured the system permissions. Said we needed better security protocols. You're on the general engineering network now, the general network. That's where the interns accessed basic documentation and filed expense reports. I'd been demoted from mission control to the parking garage. I walked into the office that day and the silence was deafening. You know that feeling when you enter a room and everyone stops talking? It was that, but constant. My team, people I'd trained, people whose kids' graduation parties I'd attended, would suddenly become very interested in their computer screens when I passed by. Then came the Oliver incident. Oliver Nash was Stephanie's nephew, 28 years old, wore $200 sneakers to the office and had an MBA but couldn't tell a capacitor from a resistor. Stephanie gave him the title Innovation Coordinator, meaningless corporate nonsense. I was mentoring Oliver initially, thinking maybe I could teach him something about the technical side. Kid had potential if someone could get through his business school conditioning. I was in the lab testing a new sensor array when Oliver bounced in, oblivious to the fact that I was clearly working on classified material. "Hey, Harold, quick question," he chirped. "I'm cleaning up the IP documentation for the Lockheed due diligence team. Stephanie said to make sure all the patent attributions are consistent. I saw your name on some of the legacy docs, but I can just do a find and replace with Defense Tech Solutions proprietary technology, right? Keep everything uniform." My blood went cold. This kid had no idea what he was saying. Oliver pulled up his tablet. "Yeah, see? Stephanie left a note here. Assert full corporate ownership. Remove individual inventor claims." I looked at the screen. It was a diagram of my SkyGuard algorithm, the specific signal processing loop that made the whole system work. And right there in bold Arial font, property of Defense Tech Solutions, wholly owned technology. She wasn't just writing me out of this company history. She was committing fraud. Under our licensing agreement, Defense Tech had usage rights, not ownership. Claiming ownership to a buyer like Lockheed wasn't just a lie, it was a material breach that voided our entire contract. "Interesting," I said, keeping my voice steady. "Oliver, could you email me that presentation? I want to double-check the technical specifications before it goes to Lockheed. We don't want any errors in something this important." "Sure thing," he said, typing away. "You're awesome, Hal. Thanks for always helping me understand this stuff. Poor kid. He had no idea he'd just handed me the ammunition to destroy his aunt's career. I actually felt bad for Oliver. He was just trying to do good work, didn't know he was being used as a weapon." I went back to my office and waited for the email. There it was. Lockheed acquisition. Presentation vi4 final.pptx. I didn't scream or storm into Stephanie's office. I opened my personal email and forwarded the file to Linda Walsh. My message was 3 words. Document this breach. Linda replied in 2 minutes. "Holy shit, Harold. Section 7 violation confirmed. This is grounds for immediate termination of the licensing agreement. You want to pull the trigger?" I stared at the cursor blinking on my screen. Not yet. If I pulled the licensing agreement now, the deal would collapse, and Stephanie would spin it as a disgruntled old employee sabotaging the company. I needed her to commit completely. I needed her to stand in front of the world and lie so boldly there was no walking it back. I typed, "Wait, let her dig the hole deeper. I want this airtight." The next few days were surreal. I sat in meetings where they discussed the future of SkyGuard without asking the man who invented it. I watched Stephanie strut around the office, high on the fumes of a $280 million deal. She bought a new espresso machine for the executive floor and started talking about celebrating our success stories. Every celebration was another nail in her coffin. I started documenting everything. Screenshots of emails, recordings of meetings where legal, printed copies of every document that showed the systematic erasure of my contributions. Linda had taught me well. In a legal fight, documentation is everything. Wade started checking in on me more frequently. "You doing okay, Hal?" he'd ask, looking concerned. "This whole restructuring thing has everyone on edge." "I'm fine," I'd tell him, just keeping my head down, doing the work. But Wade wasn't stupid. He'd been in security long enough to recognize when someone was being set up. He started sending me little updates about what was happening in the executive meetings. Not classified stuff, just the office politics. "They're really pushing this Lockheed thing hard," he told me one afternoon. "Board's coming in next week for the big presentation. Stephanie's treating it like her coronation. Is that right?" I said. "Hal," Wade said quietly, "whatever you're planning, be careful. These people play dirty." I looked at my old friend. Wade was former military, understood loyalty and honor. He knew something was wrong with this whole situation. "I'm not planning anything, Wade," I said, "just doing my job." But that wasn't entirely true. I was planning something. I was planning justice. She called me into her office late on a Thursday. The Virginia skyline was dark outside her floor-to-ceiling windows, casting long shadows across her imported desk. Stephanie sat behind it like a queen holding court, wearing another expensive suit and that predatory smile I'd grown to hate. "Harold," she said, not offering me a seat, "we need to discuss your transition." "Transition?" I asked, playing dumb. "The Lockheed deal closes next week," she said, leaning back in her leather chair. "They want a fresh organizational structure. Your salary is substantial for someone at your career stage. We need you to sign a separation agreement. Clean exit, 6-month severance, and you release any residual IP claims. Just paperwork cleanup." I looked at the folder she slid across the desk, standard corporate termination package designed to make me disappear quietly. "And if I don't?" She smiled that corporate shark smile. "Then we terminate for cause, failure to adapt to new processes, insubordination. We'll bury you in legal costs until you're selling that old patent for scrap metal." She was threatening to fire me. The patent holder. It was so stupid I almost laughed, but I kept my face neutral. Let her think she was intimidating the old engineer. "I'll consider it," I said. "You have until the all-hands meeting tomorrow," she said. "Don't make this ugly, Harold. We're offering you dignity here." "Wouldn't dream of it," I replied. I didn't go home that night. I went to the secure server room where I'd spent countless hours over the years, listening to the steady hum of the cooling fans. Wade found me there around midnight making his security rounds. "Burning the midnight oil?" he asked. "Something like that," I said, just thinking. Wade sat down in the chair next to me. We'd had many late-night conversations here over the years, solving technical problems and talking about life. He was one of the few people at the company I really trusted. "You know," Wade said carefully, "I've been doing security here for 10 years. I've seen a lot of people come and go, but I've never seen anyone treat a founder the way they're treating you." "I'm not a founder, Wade, just an employee." "Bullshit," he said quietly. "You built this place. Everyone knows it. Hell, half the engineering team learned everything they know from you. You remember when I started here? You spent weeks teaching me the technical side of our systems even though it wasn't your job." That was true. Wade had come from traditional corporate security, knew nothing about defense technology. I'd taken him under my wing, taught him how our systems worked, made sure he understood what he was protecting. It's what you do for good people. I appreciate that, Wade. "Look," he said, "I don't know what you're planning, but whatever it is, you have friends here. Real friends, not the corporate politics kind." I nodded. It was good to know, even if I couldn't tell him what was coming. The next morning, I called Linda. "It's time," I said. "You sure about this?" she asked. "Once we pull this trigger, there's no going back." "I'm sure." "Set it up exactly like we discussed. 24-hour notice, termination of all licensing rights, immediate cessation of operations." "That's right. But don't send it until after the meeting. I want her to fire me in front of everyone first." "Harold, you know this is going to destroy the company, right? A lot of innocent people are going to lose their jobs." I'd thought about that. It bothered me, but Stephanie was the one who created this situation. She could have played fair, could have respected the people who built the company. Instead, she chose greed. "The good engineers will land on their feet," I said, "and I might have opportunities for some of them." The main conference room at Defense Tech was called the Hub, a glass-walled fishbowl in the center of our open office. If you were getting fired in the Hub, everyone saw it. If you were crying in the Hub, the whole company watched. Today, every employee was crammed in there for Stephanie's strategic alignment presentation. She stood at the head of the table, flanked by board members who'd flown in from New York for the pre-acquisition celebration. They looked like a row of vultures in expensive suits, ready to feast on the carcass of everything we'd built. Stephanie was practically vibrating with energy. She had the look of someone about to become very rich. I stood in the back, leaning against the wall. I wore my usual work clothes, khakis, button-down shirt, steel-toed boots, not dressed for a funeral, but definitely ready for demolition. Wade was near the door, our security team positioned around the room. He caught my eye and gave me a slight nod. "Team," Stephanie started, her voice carrying without a microphone. "We stand at the threshold of transformation. Lockheed Martin has recognized what I've been telling you for months. Defense tech isn't just a company, it's a paradigm shift." A few people clapped, mostly from marketing. My engineers stared at their shoes. They knew the technology was solid, but they also knew the paradigm shift was mostly PowerPoint built on top of my work. To get here, Stephanie continued, pacing the room, we had to make difficult decisions. We had to optimize our human capital. We had to evolve from a research-heavy culture to a growth-focused organization. She stopped pacing and turned slowly until she was facing me directly. The room went silent. This was it. The moment she'd been building toward. "Harold," she said, using just my first name like a disappointed parent. "You've been with us since Skyguard's inception. You wrote the original code and we appreciate that contribution." She paused for dramatic effect. The performance was beginning. "But," she said, dropping her voice, "what got us here won't get us where we're going. We need visionaries, not just technicians. We need people who understand that a patent is worthless if it doesn't generate shareholder value. You've been resistant to change. You've clung to outdated methodologies. You think like a lab engineer, not a business leader." My face burned, but I kept my expression neutral. Let her talk, I thought. Let her put it all on record. I could see Oliver in the crowd, looking uncomfortable. Wade was positioned near the door, ready for whatever came next. "I offered you a generous transition package," Stephanie said, lying through her teeth in front of 50 people. "You refused. You've threatened to hold the company hostage over technicalities." Murmurs rippled through the room. She was painting me as the villain, the stubborn old guard standing in the way of everyone's payday. "So," she said, straightening her jacket, effective immediately, "Harold Mason's employment is terminated for cause. Security will escort you out." 2 additional security guards appeared by the door. It was choreographed. She wanted this visual, the old engineer being physically removed to make way for progress. I looked at the board members. They watched with cold indifference. They didn't care who built the engine as long as the car sold. I looked at my team. Oliver looked like he might throw up. Wade gave me the tiniest nod. I pushed off the wall and walked toward the door. I didn't scream or launch into a speech about how I'd built the company's future. Instead, I stopped and turned back. "You're making a mistake, Stephanie," I said quietly. In that silent room, my voice carried like a gunshot. "The only mistake," she sneered, "was keeping you this long. Your patents belong to Defense Tech, Harold. Read your contract. Now get out. Read your contract." The irony was so thick you could cut it with a scalpel. I picked up my laptop bag and walked past the table of board members. I walked past Stephanie, who was already turning back to the room, dismissing me like yesterday's newspaper. I felt every eye in that building watching me leave. The security guard reached for my arm. I stepped aside. "I know the way," I said to Wade. As the elevator doors closed, I could see Stephanie raising a champagne glass through the hub's glass walls. She thought the game was over. She thought she'd won. I pulled out my phone and texted Linda. "It's done. Public termination for cause." She explicitly claimed patent ownership in front of the board and 50 witnesses. Linda replied instantly, "Executing termination notice now. 24-hour countdown starts." I walked out into the bitter Virginia wind. The air smelled like snow and car exhaust. It smelled like freedom. The next 24 hours were the calm before the storm. I went home to my Arlington apartment and waited. At exactly 3:17 p.m. the following day, Linda sent the email that would change everything. Subject: Notice of patent license termination. Immediate action required. To General Counsel Defense Tech Solutions. CC Board of Directors. Per Section 12 of the Master Patent License Agreement dated August 15, 2016. Licensor Harold Mason. Hereby exercises the right to terminate all usage rights to patents. US 10,142,638 and US 10,398,441, SkyGuard system, due to material breach of contract. 1. False claims of ownership to third parties. 2. Termination of inventor without cause in violation of founder protection provisions. This termination becomes effective immediately. Defense Tech Solutions must cease all operations utilizing licensed technology or face litigation for patent infringement. At 4:30 p.m., Neil Cooper from Lockheed called me directly. Mr. Mason, we've received some concerning information about the IP status of SkyGuard. Our due diligence team has confirmed you hold the core patents. Is it true that Defense Tech's licensing agreement has been terminated? That's correct, Mr. Cooper. As of 3:17 p.m. today, they have no legal right to use my technology. I see. And the circumstances of this termination? They fired me yesterday and publicly claimed ownership of my patents. It's all documented. Long pause. Mr. Mason, thank you for your transparency. We'll be in touch. Within hours, Lockheed withdrew from the acquisition. The $280 million deal evaporated. Defense Tech's stock price collapsed. Emergency board meetings were called. By evening, my phone was buzzing with frantic calls from Barry Stone, the general counsel, begging me to reconsider. I let them all go to voicemail. The next morning, I got a call from Carl Dixon, the board chairman. Harold, there's been a terrible misunderstanding. Stephanie has been relieved of her duties. We'd like you to return as Chief Technology Officer with a substantial equity package. I'm not interested in returning, Carl. Then what do you want? Complete transfer of all SkyGuard assets to my holding company. Full ownership, not licensing. Defense Tech can shut down the defense division. That would bankrupt us. You were already bankrupt, Carl. You just didn't know it yet. It took a week, but they capitulated. They had no choice. Without the patent rights, the company was worthless. I signed the asset transfer agreement in Linda's office. Everything I'd built over 8 years was finally mine again, completely and legally. So what's next? Linda asked. I'm starting fresh. Already have half my old team ready to join me. Wade's coming over as COO. Even Oliver asked if he could work for us. Kid learned a hard lesson about corporate loyalty. And Stephanie? Stephanie's facing shareholder lawsuits and SEC investigation for the fraudulent IP claims. She'll never run a company again. A month later, I was back in a lab, but this time it was my lab, Mason Defense Systems, with a small team of engineers who understood that building something real was more important than quarterly earnings. Wade stopped by my office one evening as I was working on SkyGuard 2.0, the next generation system that would make the original look primitive. You know, he said, I never doubted you'd land on your feet, but I didn't expect you to take half the company with you. I looked around at our new facility, at the engineers working late because they believed in what we were building, not because some MBA demanded it. That's the difference between loyalty and fear, Wade. Loyalty follows you anywhere. Fear just makes people look for the nearest exit. They tried to steal my life's work, to erase 25 years of dedication and innovation. They forgot that real engineers don't just build systems. We build them to last, with safeguards against exactly this kind of betrayal. The patents were safe. The team was stronger. And me? I was just getting started. Some lessons cost $280, million to learn. But the most valuable lesson was free. Never underestimate the guy who built the thing you're trying to steal. We tend to plan ahead. In the end, the best defense isn't just protecting what you've built. It's making sure you can rebuild it better when others try to tear it down. They thought experience was a liability in the modern world. They forgot that experience is just another word for knowing where all the traps are hidden.
Don't pity me. My heart doesn't need your mercy. I can still stand on my own. I was broken by your leaving. Fell deeper than I thought I would. But pain has taught me how to heal now and survive what once I couldn't. You don't have to look back sadly. Don't reach out with guilty hands. What you shattered made me stronger. Now I rise where I once collapsed. My heart doesn't need need your pity, not another empty sign. I've got enough strength left within me to rebuild this life of mine. My feet are steady through the sorrow, I can stand through all the pain. You don't have to save me, darling, I'll learn to breathe again. I once begged for your affection, now I've learned my worth in scars. And the man you left in pieces found his own way through the dark. My heart doesn't need your pity, not another empty sign. I've got enough strength left within me to rebuild this life of mine. My feet are steady through the sorrow, I can stand through all the pain. You don't have to save me, darling, I'll learn to breathe again. My heart doesn't need your pity, not another empty sign. I've got enough strength left within me to rebuild this life of mine. My feet are steady through the sorrow, I can stand through all the pain. You don't have to save me, darling, I'll rise alone again. I'll rise alone again.
They say just forget, move on like it's easy. But forgetting you feels like remembering someone I've never seen. I've been trying to erase you from the places in my mind, but the harder that I fight it, the more you're hard to leave behind. Every memory keeps slipping through the cracks I try to close, like a face I should remember, but somehow never know. Forgetting you feels impossible, like chasing something I can't hold, like trying to remember someone that I've never even known. I keep reaching through the silence for a past I can't undo, 'cause letting go of what we had feels like losing something true. Every moment turns to fragments, every thought just fades to blue, like I'm searching for a feeling that still only leads to you. Forgetting you feels impossible, like chasing something I can't hold, like trying to remember someone that I've never even known. I keep reaching through the silence for a past I can't undo, 'cause letting go of what we had feels like losing something true. If I never met Forgetting you feels impossible, like chasing something I can't hold, like trying to remember someone that I've never even known. I keep reaching through the silence for a past I can't undo, 'cause letting go of what we had feels like losing something true.